Hey there, students. So, this is an introduction to a concept known as the hero's journey. I mentioned it briefly in my introduction to the Odyssey video. Since we will be covering this a bit throughout our reading of the Odyssey, I feel like it would be appropriate to give you a bit of an introduction to this concept so that you'll be familiar with it, be able to recognize its steps, and be able to recognize where the hero's journey appears in stories that you enjoy. Like I said before, the hero's journey is a common storytelling formula that has existed for centuries. It's also known as the monomyth. Now, if you break that down, mono means one, and a myth is a story. So, monomyth literally means one story, because this is one type of story that fits so many different structures for classic tales that people love. Basically, the hero's journey follows this plot line as shown in this graph here. The hero is always a young character who must leave the place that they have called home their entire lives, go on an adventure, resolve a crisis, and return home transformed or enlightened. Nobody who goes on the hero's journey starts out as a hero. It's a process. A person has to grow and evolve throughout their hero's journey. So, these stories not just tell a story of action or adventure, it also tells how someone evolves into the hero that they were always meant to be. The idea of the hero's journey originated in 1945 from Joseph John Campbell, a professor of literature who wrote a story called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. In this novel, he coined the phrase the hero's journey to describe how, in every great story, the hero undergoes their own hero's journey, which tells how this person comes to be a heroic human being. And this process always has the same 12 steps with some minor variations on them. Now, in order to give you an explanation of what these steps are and how the hero's journey falls together, I'm going to use the example of Link, the character known as the Hero of Time from the well-known video game franchise The Legend of Zelda. Because off the bat, Link already has all of the basic requirements of a hero at the start of their hero's journey. They're always some sort of seemingly normal youth raised in a structured and safe and basic environment. A series of unforeseeably tragic or inconvenient events might occur. Something has to occur, basically, in order to upset the status quo of this character's life. And they will be responsible for resolving whatever conflict arises. This is a big deal because it's a lot of responsibility given to someone with very little life experience. This hero must leave the safety and familiarity of their home and embark on a mission to resolve that conflict, whatever it may be. And over the course of the journey, they'll learn truths about themselves and about the world during their journey. It's all about making sure that this is not just about them fixing a problem, it's about them growing and developing as a character. Now, The Legend of Zelda has had a number of well-received entries in its franchise over the years. So in order to narrow the focus and make sure it's easier to identify these aspects of the hero's journey, we're going to focus specifically on the plot of Ocarina of Time, one of the favorites of this franchise. I'll walk you through the 12 steps of the hero's journey. So these are the steps that are always there. Like I said, there's always going to be some minor variations, but these 12 steps are usually what you'll see over the course of a hero's journey and how the hero develops. So the first set of steps of the hero's journey can basically be cut into different acts. And this is going to be Act 1, Departure. This is where we start out in the hero's ordinary world. They learn about their quest, and they must separate themselves from the world they know in order to continue on their hero's journey. Step 1 is the ordinary world. This is essentially when the hero finds themselves in the world they start in. It might be safe, structured, maybe the hero's a little bored to start out with. This is before we know that there's a conflict in the world. In this case, Link starts out in Kokiri Forest. He has lived in this forest all his life. He's an orphan. No one knows who his parents are. He's not really a village outcast, but he's definitely someone who has his fair share of oddities in town. Then one day, Navi, the fairy, appears. In the hero's journey, there's always going to be a character that acts as the mentor. These are your Dumbledores or Gandalfs, the characters that are responsible for teaching the hero, for helping them develop and helping them learn the skills that they will need to survive their hero's journey. Navi follows Link throughout the game, giving him helpful advice and guidance on his journey. He is also the character that leads Link to his call to adventure. The call to adventure in the hero's journey is whenever the hero receives news about what grand conflict they need to overcome. For example, in Lord of the Rings, the call to adventure would be when Frodo is tasked with carrying the ring to Mordor. Or in Star Wars, it would be when Luke decides that he has to get R2-D2 and C-3PO to Obi-Wan Kenobi. In the case of Ocarina of Time, Navi leads Link to the village elder, the Deku Tree, a living, talking tree who explains to Link that he is dying because an evil wizard named Ganondorf has poisoned the roots of the Deku Tree. And for some reason that Link is not yet clear on yet, Link is the only person able to stop Ganondorf as he plots to gain control of Hyrule. With his mission given to him, Link embarks on the final step of Act 1 of the hero's journey, crossing the first threshold. This is when the hero leaves behind the ordinary world. They leave the place that they have known home all of their lives in order to embark on their grand adventure. For Harry Potter, it would be when Harry gets onto the Hogwarts Express and heads off to Hogwarts for the first time. For Link, it's when he leaves Kokiri Forest for the first time in his entire life and sees the entire kingdom of Hyrule, seeing how it's so much bigger than just the forest he's lived in. And this is where his journey officially begins. This is the beginning of Act 2, the initiation. Like I've said before, nobody starts out their hero's journey already having all the qualifications of being a hero. If that were the case, the journey would be a lot shorter and not as interesting. We need to see the hero overcome obstacles, grow as a person and as a hero, and become the kind of person who is ready to save the world. One thing that the hero is going to have to do is join forces. No hero can go it alone. Everyone needs friends, just like in the real world. In this case, Link has to align himself with the various denizens throughout the kingdom of Hyrule. Princesses, old friends, creatures living in the mountains and in the rivers, different people throughout the kingdom who want to see peace and prosperity brought to the people they love. By aligning themselves with these people, Link is able to grow as a person and as a hero, as they teach him all the skills he needs to survive. Supernatural aid. Every hero has some sort of power or advantage. It might be something literal, like a sword or a wand. It might be just a skill set that the hero has that no one else has, but it's something that sets them apart, something that gives them an upper hand in whatever journey they're on. For Link, it's the Master Sword, a sword that gives him the ability to travel through time and fight Ganondorf not just in this time period, but several years in the future after Ganondorf has already taken over. The Road of Trials. Every hero has to overcome smaller obstacles on the course of their journey. You can't just skip right to the final boss because then you're going to be massively underpowered. As Link fights his way through the kingdom of Hyrule and undergoes different challenges, he has to learn things about this new world in order to best maneuver it. Over the course, he learns that skeletons pop out of the ground at night. He learns that with the power of his ocarina, he can use magic. He learns that picking a fight with a chicken is a bad idea. and this is a lesson he learns time and time again throughout every single game. But ultimately, another thing along the road of trials are living creatures known as threshold guardians. Threshold guardians are specific living beings that are trying to stop the hero from moving forward on the course of their hero's journey. In video games, it's pretty clear that a threshold guardian would be a boss character. So Link has to encounter giant rock-eating dragons, fire-breathing serpents, water demons, a giant pair of disembodied hands playing the bongos. A number of vicious, malevolent creatures stand in between Link and his end goal. And over the course of the hero's journey, the hero will encounter Step 9, Knowledge Gained. Sometime near the end of their journey, the hero will gain something important to them, a clarity of sorts that they never would have gained from staying in the ordinary world. They learn something important about their lives, about their origins, about themselves. They grow as a person. In the case of the Ocarina of Time, this is a video game that's a couple of decades old, and storytelling has definitely gone a long way from here. But in the course of the story, since we have a silent protagonist, there's not really a big emotional payoff for the knowledge gained, which is why people are able to depict it in goofy comics like this. Hello, Link! It's me, the Deku Sprout! I am happy to finally reveal the secrets of your past to you! You're adopted! Your mother is dead! You were raised by a tree! And now it's up to you to save all of Hyrule! Go forth, hero! Yay! If Link was not a silent protagonist, there'd be a more emotional payoff for understanding these parts of his past that he never actually knew. But since this is a game from 1999 and storytelling in video games had a long way to go, this is what we got. Number 10, the Supreme Ordeal. After the hero has taken care of everything in their way on the road of trials, after they've gained all the skills necessary, all that remains is the final conflict. Link, armed with all the skills he needs, lays siege to Ganondorf's castle and faces the man head-on in a one-on-one fight and emerges victorious. Which leads into the third and final act of the hero's journey, the return. All journeys must come to an end, and this is where we enter the home stretch after the main conflict has been resolved. Number 11 is the return to good. This is when the hero now sees the results of his hard work. Peace and prosperity returns to his world. And Link, having destroyed Ganondorf, has brought peace back to Hyrule. Which leads into number 12, the journey home. He returns to his own time period and returns home to Kokiri Forest. But as I said before, when the hero's journey is done and the hero returns home, they don't return home the same person. They have grown. Link is stronger, wiser, and as a result of his hard work, he will now be known throughout history as the hero of time. Now, that is just one example of how the hero's journey plays out. Part of our activities in class will be about you using the stories that you love and trying to identify if the hero's journey exists in any of them. More on that later. Have a good one.